I stared at my phone screen. 9:43 p.m. Battery, 6%. Bank account balance, $0. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold October wind cutting through Pioneer Courthouse Square in downtown Portland, though that didn't help. No, I was shaking because 32 years of my life had just been erased in less than 10 minutes. My husband, Thomas, had just locked me out of our house. Our house. The one we'd bought together in 1992, when interest rates were high but our hopes were higher. The house where we'd raised our daughter. The house where I'd nursed him through pneumonia 5 years ago, sitting up all night with cold compresses because he was too stubborn to go to the hospital. That house. Next to me on the bench sat a black garbage bag. That's what he'd given me, a trash bag with some clothes hastily shoved inside. Not even my clothes, I'd realized when I looked. Half of them belonged to her. The woman I'd found wearing my bathrobe in my kitchen when I came home early from my shift at the library. In my wallet, I had $36 in cash. A Visa card that had been declined at the 7-Eleven when I tried to buy a bottle of water. And something I'd forgotten about for almost 2 decades, something that had been tucked in the bill compartment since before my father died. A business card, cream-colored, slightly bent, with raised lettering, Harold Chen, P.E. Electrical engineering consultant. My father. I pulled it out now, running my thumb over his name. The edges were soft from years of being carried around. I didn't even remember putting it in this wallet. Must have been when I transferred everything over after Dad died 18 years ago, and I'd never cleaned out that pocket. Behind his name and phone number, in his precise engineer's handwriting, was a note I'd never noticed before. Patent number 6,847,293. Trust Jacobson and Associates when the time comes. They'll explain everything. I had no idea what that meant, but I had nowhere else to go, and nothing left to lose. Let me back up. I should probably tell you how I got here. My name is Margaret Chen Foster. Though I'd been going by Margaret Foster for so long, I sometimes forgot the Chen part belonged to me too. I'm 63 years old. I've been a librarian at the Multnomah County Central Library for 38 years. I started there right out of college, back when card catalogs were still a thing, and the internet was something only universities had. I met Thomas at a conference in 1992. He was working in pharmaceutical sales, charismatic and confident. He made me laugh. We got married 6 months later, and looking back, maybe that should have been a red flag. But I was 31 and tired of being alone, and he seemed so sure about us. Our daughter, Lisa, was born in 1994. She's 29 now, living in Seattle with her girlfriend, working in tech. She calls once a week, usually on Sundays. She's always been closer to Thomas than to me, something that hurt but I learned to accept. He was the fun parent. I was the one who made sure homework got done and vegetables got eaten. The marriage wasn't perfect, what marriage is, but it was comfortable, predictable. We had our routines. I worked at the library, brought home my modest salary. He worked in sales, brought home more. We split the bills. We took a vacation to the Oregon coast every summer. We watched Jeopardy together every night at 7:30. Or at least, we used to. About 6 months ago, things started changing. Thomas started working later, coming home at 9, 10 at night, smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. He started going to the gym more often, lost 15 pounds, bought new clothes, younger styles, got his hair dyed to cover the gray. I'm not stupid. I knew what was happening, but I was too scared to confront it, too scared of what I'd lose if I was right, so I pretended not to notice. Until tonight. I'd been scheduled to work until 9, but Janet called in sick, and I agreed to cover just the first half of her shift. I got home at 6:30 instead of 9. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. I used my key, walked in, and there she was. Younger, maybe 35, blonde hair in a messy bun, wearing my bathrobe, the cream-colored one I'd gotten for my 60th birthday, drinking coffee from my favorite mug, the one Lisa had made me in middle school art class. She looked at me and didn't even have the decency to look surprised. "Oh," she said, "you're early." Thomas came downstairs. He was wearing the shirt I'd ironed for him that morning. He looked at me, looked at her, and I waited for the apology, the explanation, the guilt. Instead, he said, "Margaret, We need to talk. And that's when my whole world came apart. He told me he'd been seeing Jessica, that's her name, for 8 months. He told me he was in love with her. He told me she understood him in ways I never had. He told me I'd become boring, that I'd let myself go, that I never wanted to do anything exciting anymore. I was 63 years old and worked on my feet all day shelving books. I was tired. I was allowed to be tired. He told me he wanted a divorce. He told me he'd already spoken to a lawyer. He told me I needed to leave tonight because Jessica was moving in, and it would be too awkward for everyone if I stayed. I asked about our daughter. He said Lisa already knew, had known for months, and she supported his decision. That hurt worse than anything else. I asked about money. He said we'd split everything 50-50, which sounded fair until I realized he'd already emptied our joint checking account that afternoon. $23,000? Gone. My half of the savings? Gone. He'd left the account open with a zero balance. You can stay at a hotel tonight, he said. Use your credit card. I tried. At the front desk of the Days Inn on Powell Boulevard, my card was declined. He'd maxed it out somehow. I didn't understand how. We had separate cards. But later I'd learn he was an authorized user on mine, and I was too trusting to ever check the statements. So that's how I ended up on a bench in Pioneer Courthouse Square at 9:43 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, with $6 left on my phone battery, a garbage bag of clothes that weren't even mine, and $36 to my name. And my father's business card. I thought about calling Lisa. But if Thomas was telling the truth, if she really had known for months and never warned me, never called to check on me, then what was the point? The betrayal from her might hurt even more than the betrayal from him. I thought about calling my sister in Bend, but we hadn't spoken in 4 years, some argument about Mom's estate that never got resolved. I thought about going to a shelter, but the pride wouldn't let me. Not yet. Not on the first night. So instead, I looked at my father's business card. Harold Chen had been a brilliant man, quiet, methodical, always tinkering with something in his garage workshop. He'd immigrated from Taiwan in 1965, worked his way through Oregon State University, became a licensed professional engineer. He specialized in electrical systems, particularly batteries and power storage. He died suddenly in 2006 of a heart attack while gardening. He was only 68. We'd been close, especially after Mom died when I was 25. He walked me down the aisle when I married Thomas. He cried when Lisa was born. After he died, we'd settled his small estate. He'd rented an apartment in Beaverton, had maybe $40,000 in savings, an old truck, some tools. We sold most of it, kept a few mementos. There was no mention of any patent. No mention of anything valuable. But this note on the back of his card said otherwise. Trust Jacobson and Associates when the time comes. They'll explain everything. My phone was down to 5% battery. I had enough for maybe one call. I Googled Jacobson and Associates Portland with shaking fingers. It was a law firm, intellectual property law. They had an emergency contact number. I almost didn't call. It was nearly 10 p.m. What kind of law firm answers at 10 p.m.? But I had nowhere else to turn. So I dialed. Jacobson and Associates, this is the answering service. How may I direct your call? I'm not sure. My name is Margaret Chen Foster. My father was Harold Chen. He died 18 years ago, but he left me a business card with your firm's name on it and a patent number, and I don't know what it means, but I need help. I'm sorry. I know it's late. Please hold. The hold music was Vivaldi. I watched my battery drop to 4%. Then, Miss Chen Foster? A man's voice, older, professional but kind. This is Richard Jacobson. I'm the senior partner. I've been waiting 18 years for this call. My battery was at 3%. I don't understand, I said. Your father, Harold Chen, came to us in 1998 with a patent he'd been granted. He asked us to manage it, to maintain it, and to contact you only under certain circumstances. Either when you turned 65, or if you ever called us in an emergency using the information on his business card. Which circumstance is this? Emergency, I whispered. I have nowhere to go. My husband, I don't have anywhere. Where are you right now? Pioneer Courthouse Square. On a bench. Stay there. I'm sending a car. Don't move. Keep your phone on as long as you can. The driver will find you. I don't understand. What patent? Why would my father— We'll explain everything. But Miss Chen Foster, your father left you something very, very valuable. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. Just stay where you are. My phone died at 2%. I sat there in the dark, clutching that business card, not knowing if I'd hallucinated the whole conversation. Maybe I'd fallen asleep. Maybe this was a dream. Maybe I'd wake up and be back home and Thomas would apologize and say it was all a mistake. But 15 minutes later, a black town car pulled up to the curb. A driver in a suit got out and looked right at me. "Margaret Chen Foster?" I nodded. "Mr. Jacobson sent me. Let me take your bag." He picked up my garbage bag like it was Louis Vuitton luggage and opened the car door for me. The interior smelled like leather and was warm. There was a bottle of water in the cup holder and a phone charger. "Where are we going?" I asked. "The Heathman Hotel. Mr. Jacobson has reserved a suite for you for as long as you need. He'll meet you there in the morning to discuss your father's estate." Estate. My father had $40,000 18 years ago. Even with interest, that wouldn't pay for a night at the Heathman, let alone as long as I need. We drove through downtown Portland in silence. I plugged in my phone and watched it slowly come back to life. 3 missed calls from Thomas, 1 text from him. "Don't try to come back tonight. I'll have your things sent somewhere." 1 text from Lisa. "Dad told me what happened. I think you both need space. Take care of yourself, Mom." Nothing else. "No, I love you." "No, are you okay? Just take care of yourself." I deleted both messages. The Heathman was the kind of hotel I'd walked past 1,000 times but never imagined staying in. The lobby had marble floors and crystal chandeliers and people in expensive coats. The desk clerk was expecting me, treated me with respect despite my disheveled appearance and garbage bag. The suite had a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom with a soaking tub, and a king-sized bed with pillows so soft I wanted to cry. There was a basket on the coffee table with fruit, cheese, crackers, and a bottle of wine. A note, "Compliments of Mr. Jacobson. Rest tonight. We'll talk in the morning. You're safe now." I took a shower that lasted 40 minutes. I washed my hair 3 times trying to feel clean again. I put on the hotel bathrobe, which was much nicer than the one Jessica had been wearing. I ate 3 apples and half the cheese because I realized I hadn't eaten since lunch. Then I lay in that enormous bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to understand what was happening. My father had left me something valuable. Valuable enough to pay for this hotel. Valuable enough that a senior partner at a law firm would answer an emergency line at 10 p.m. and send a car immediately. What patent? He'd never mentioned a patent. He'd worked on battery technology, I knew that. He had notebooks full of calculations and diagrams. After he died, we'd thrown most of them away because they seemed like the obsessive hobby of a lonely old man. What if we'd been wrong? What if those notebooks had been worth something? I finally fell asleep around 3 a.m. and dreamed of my father's workshop, the smell of solder and metal, his patient voice explaining circuit diagrams to a bored teenage daughter who just wanted to go to the mall with her friends. I woke up at 8 to knocking on the door. Room service. Coffee, orange juice, croissants, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit. Compliments of Mr. Jacobson. At 9, another knock. Richard Jacobson himself. He was maybe 70, with white hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase and wore a suit that probably cost more than my car. "Miss Chen Foster, I'm so glad you're safe. May I come in?" We sat at the small table by the window overlooking downtown Portland. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick file folder. "Your father came to me in 1998, he said. He'd been working for years on improving lithium-ion battery technology. Specifically, he developed a unique electrode configuration that significantly improved energy density and charging speed. He filed for a patent in 1996, and it was granted in 1998. Patent number 6,847,293. He slid a document across the table. There it was, in official government printing, Harold Chen's name, a date, and pages of technical diagrams that looked like the ones from his notebooks. He asked me to manage the patent for him, to license it to companies that wanted to use the technology. At the time, lithium-ion batteries were mostly used in small electronics, laptops, early cell phones. Your father was being offered maybe 10, $15,000 a year in licensing fees. So he made some money from it, I said. That was good. That was something. He made quite a bit more than some money, Miss Chen Foster. You see, your father had vision. He structured the licensing agreements to scale with usage. As the technology became more widespread, the fees would increase proportionally. He also retained certain key rights that most inventors sign away. I don't understand. In the early 2000s, companies started developing electric vehicles, hybrid cars, then fully electric cars. They all needed better batteries. Your father's patent covered core technology that almost every major battery manufacturer now uses. Tesla, Panasonic, LG Chem, Samsung SDI, CATL in China. Every single one of them licenses technology that falls under your father's patent. My mouth was dry. How much? The patent was set to expire in 2018, 20 years after it was granted. But your father filed for extensions, applied for related patents based on improvements, created a whole portfolio. Some of those patents don't expire until 2028. The licensing fees, accumulated over 26 years, with interest, with strategic investments we made on his behalf, currently total approximately $273 million. I couldn't breathe. 270, I started, but I couldn't finish the sentence. Million. Yes. Your father, Miss Chen Foster, was a very wealthy man. He lived modestly by choice. He maintained his rented apartment, his old truck, his simple life. But he was building this for you. He wanted you to have it when you needed it most. Why didn't he just tell me? Richard smiled sadly. I asked him that many times. He said he wanted you to live your own life, make your own choices, not be influenced by money. He said money changes people, and he liked who you were. He was very proud of you, you know. He talked about you all the time. The librarian daughter who loved books and helped people find stories. He thought that was the most important job in the world. I was crying now. Great. Heaving sobs that I'd been holding in since Thomas told me to leave. Richard handed me a box of tissues and waited patiently. There's more, he said gently. Your father set up a trust. The money was to be held until you turned 65 or until you contacted us in an emergency, whichever came first. He specified certain conditions. If you were happily married, financially stable, and didn't need it, it would go to your daughter when you passed. But if you needed it, if you were in trouble, it was yours immediately. No restrictions, no conditions. He wanted you to be able to start over if you ever needed to. He knew, I whispered. Somehow he knew I might need this. Your father was a wise man. He saw how people treat each other. He wanted to make sure you'd always have power, even if you never had to use it. Richard pulled out more documents. There are also some ongoing legal matters you should be aware of. Several companies have been using technology covered by your father's patents without proper licensing. We've been monitoring this, waiting for your authorization to proceed with legal action. What companies? He slid over a list. 23 companies, large and small. Electronics manufacturers, automakers, battery startups. Halfway down the list, I saw it. MedTech Innovations Incorporated. Thomas's company. The pharmaceutical equipment company he'd been working for the past 12 years. That one, I said, pointing. My husband works there. Richard looked at the list, then at me. MedTech Innovations manufactures portable medical devices, defibrillators, portable oxygen concentrators, insulin pumps. They all use lithium-ion batteries with technology covered under your father's patents. They've been using it without a license since 2019. The estimated back fees and damages would be approximately $18 million. I sat back. The room was spinning. My husband, who had just thrown me out for being boring and broke, worked for a company that owed me $18 million. The universe had a very dark sense of humor. What do I need to do? I asked. Richard spent the next 2 hours explaining everything. The trust structure, the investment portfolio, the ongoing licensing agreements, the legal actions we could take against the infringing companies. I signed papers, provided identification, set up new bank accounts in my name only. By noon, I was officially worth $273 million. By 1 p.m., I'd retained Richard's firm to file lawsuits against all 23 companies on the infringement list, including MedTech Innovations. By 2 p.m., I'd called a divorce attorney Richard recommended, one who specialized in high-net-worth cases. By 3 p.m., I was back in my hotel suite, staring at a bank balance I couldn't fully comprehend, holding my father's business card and crying again. But this time, I wasn't crying from sadness. I was crying from relief, from gratitude, from the overwhelming feeling of being loved and protected by someone who wasn't even here anymore. My father had spent the last 8 years of his life building this safety net for me. He'd worked with lawyers, managed investments, maintained patents, all while living in his modest apartment and driving his old truck and pretending to be a simple, retired engineer. He'd done all of that so I would never be helpless, so I would never be on that bench with nowhere to go. I stayed at the Heathman for 3 more days while I figured out my next moves. Richard's firm arranged everything. They found me a beautiful apartment in the Pearl District with immediate availability. They helped me buy furniture, open accounts, get a new phone and laptop. They connected me with a financial advisor, a tax attorney, an investment manager. On day 4, I went back to the house. Our house. Thomas's house now, I guess, though that was about to change. I rang the doorbell. Jessica answered, still wearing my bathrobe. "Thomas," she called over her shoulder. "It's your wife." He came to the door looking annoyed. "Margaret, I told you I'd send your things." "I'm here for my grandmother's kimono," I said calmly. "The silk one with the cranes." It was in the bedroom closet. "I'm also taking the photo albums and Lisa's baby book." "You can't just—" "I can. And I will. My lawyer says I'm entitled to my personal property, and if you prevent me from accessing it, that's called spousal property theft." I said this clearly, loudly, so the neighbors could hear. He looked shocked that I had a lawyer at all. "How are you even affording that?" "That's no longer your concern. The kimono, Thomas, and the albums. Now." He got them, grumbling the whole time. Jessica watched from the living room, looking uncertain now. Maybe she was starting to realize that the broke, boring wife wasn't quite as powerless as Thomas had made me seem. As I was leaving, I turned back. "Oh, one more thing. You should probably tell your boss at MedTech that you're married to me. It might be relevant when their lawyers get served next week." "Served? What are you talking about?" "Patent infringement. My father's patents, actually, which I now own. MedTech has been using licensed technology for 5 years without paying for it. The lawsuit is being filed Monday. Estimated damages are around $18 million. I thought you should know." I didn't wait to see his reaction. I just walked to my car, a used Honda Civic that Richard had helped me buy, put my grandmother's kimono carefully in the back seat, and drove away. The lawsuits took 8 months. MedTech settled out of court for $16 million. 12 other companies settled for various amounts. 8 cases went to trial, and we won 7 of them. The divorce took 6 months. Thomas's lawyer tried to argue that he was entitled to half of my inheritance. My lawyer, who cost $800 an hour and was worth every penny, calmly explained that the trust had been established before the marriage, that the funds were never commingled with marital assets, and that under Oregon law, Thomas had exactly 0 claim to any of it. He got half the equity in the house, which was about $80,000, half his $401k, which I didn't even want but took anyway because my lawyer said it would make a point, and half of the $23,000 he'd stolen from our joint account, which meant he had to give me back $11,500. I got everything else, which was fine with me. Lisa called during the divorce proceedings. "Mom, Dad says you're suing his company. Is that true?" "Yes. But that's his job. He could lose his job. Then his company should have paid for the technology they were using." "I can't believe you're being so vindictive." "Vindictive would be if I'd done this to hurt him. I'm not doing it to hurt him. I'm doing it because it's right. Your grandfather created something valuable, and people need to pay for it. The fact that your father works for one of those people is just coincidence." "He said you inherited a lot of money. Is that true?" "Yes." "How much?" I thought about lying, about protecting her feelings, about being the nice, accommodating mother I'd always been. Instead, I said, "Enough that I never have to worry about anything ever again. Enough that your grandfather wanted me to have freedom and security." Enough that I'm going to use it to help other people the way I wish someone had helped me." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Are you really okay? Like actually okay?" "I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm free." That was a year ago. Today, I'm 64 years old. I still work at the library 3 days a week because I love it and because I don't need the money, so I can let them hire a full-time person with my salary, and I just volunteer now. I live in a beautiful apartment with a view of the Willamette River. I travel when I want to. I bought a Subaru Outback, which is very Portland of me, and I drive to the coast whenever I feel like it. I started a foundation in my father's name, the Harold Chen Technology Education Fund. We give scholarships to first-generation immigrant students studying engineering. We've funded 800 scholarships so far. I bought Lisa a condo in Seattle for her birthday. She cried when I gave her the deed. She's been calling more often now. Every few days instead of every week. We're working on our relationship. It's not perfect, but it's healing. Thomas married Jessica. I heard they're expecting a baby. I hope they're happy. I really do. Not because I'm a saint, but because his happiness or unhappiness has nothing to do with me anymore, and that's the greatest freedom of all. Sometimes I still think about that night on the bench in Pioneer Courthouse Square. How scared I was. How lost I felt. How I thought my life was over at 63. Instead, it was just beginning. My father left me more than money. He left me proof that I was loved, that someone had believed in me, planned for me, protected me, even after he was gone. He taught me that your worth isn't determined by what your husband thinks of you, or how much money is in your bank account, or whether you're young or old or exciting or boring. Your worth is inherent. You carry it with you. And sometimes, when you're sitting on a bench with nothing but a garbage bag and $36, all you need is one person who saw your value all along. For me, that person was my father, and his last gift to me wasn't the money. It was reminding me that I'd always had the power. I'd just forgotten it for a while. If you're watching this from somewhere difficult, if you feel powerless, if someone has told you you're worthless or boring or too old or not enough, I want you to know something. They're wrong. You are enough. You've always been enough. And somewhere, someone knows your value, even if you've forgotten it yourself. Hold on to that. Hold on to your own business card, whatever that means for you. The thing that reminds you of who you really are, because you never know when you're going to need it. Where are you watching from today? And more importantly, who in your life reminded you of your own worth when you'd forgotten it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story meant something to you. And remember, you're stronger than you think, even when you're sitting on that bench with nowhere to go. Trust me, I know.